He's the black goo with an attitude. We're talking about Venom, aka Symbiote Spider-Man. Hi, I'm Nando, and in these videos I take a character from Marvel Comics. I talk about their history, their power set, their personality, and I give you some reading recommendations. And this is all because this week this character is being introduced into the collectible card game Marvel Snap. But most of the video is just me talking about the character. Also, my cat Mortimer is on my lap. That's why everything's moving around here. Say hi. Hi. Okay, let's talk about the symbiote. Now this one's a little tricky because this character has been around forever. And what this character even is has changed a lot over the course of its lifetime. And by this character's been around forever, what I mean is this character showed up in the 80s and has stuck around since, but like they have done so many things to the backstory of the symbiote and what it actually even is, what it had done in the past, that talking about the symbiote as a character is interesting, but complicated. Now, this is the first time that I can think of in Marvel Snap, not just where like a variant that is in any other universe, the way we're describing it, like a variant like Spider-Man 2099 is a variant of Spider-Man, but specifically like an alternate costume or an alternate version of another character is turned into its own card. So I don't want to do a whole origin on Spider-Man. However, Spider-Man and the black suit, or the symbiote, they have some history, but it's not as much history as you would expect. And also, if you've watched the cartoons or some of the movies or played the video games, you probably have a sense for what the Spider-Man symbiote origin is. Now, there are a couple characters that have taken on the symbiote that we all know of. Where Spider-Man is the most popular character that has had the symbiote, Eddie Brock is the most popular character for having the symbiote because then he created Venom. Now, in comics, the symbiote itself, the one that is this costume that keeps jumping from character to character, is more or less known as Venom. Like, that is its name. I cannot find a better name for this in, like, the native language of these aliens, because this is an alien race. I'll explain in a second. So there's Eddie Brock, very famous. The symbiote will then go on to, and again, it jumps from character to character sometimes very quickly, like a character will put it on and then it will leave them. The next big character to take the mantle of Venom and the symbiote is Mac Gargan, also known as a Scorpion. He had the symbiote for most of the mid-2000s, like the Dark Avengers, Thunderbolts, that run. You then go over to Flash Thompson, who is known as Agent Venom, and this character is incredibly popular. He is also getting his own Marvel Snap card in a month, so we'll talk more about him there. And in this time, it's constantly going back to Eddie. Like, it's not that this will never go back to Eddie. Although some of these characters it does spend a lot of time with and do storylines where like Eddie is not even kind of involved. Flash Thompson storylines sometimes are this. And then most recently, although it just got a new host, although I don't think we even know who that is, it did go to Dylan Brock, Eddie's son, so that was a development that was pretty recent. Now, I have seen, whenever I do this, I try to look at what other videos are out there, A, so I can just get a sense for, like, am I missing anything, and B, because I want to see how much information there is about a certain character, and, like, is this a video that people have made a billion of, and if it is, I want to make a little different video. I'm going to focus on something different, maybe something new. This is a video that has been made quite a few times. There are a lot of good versions of this video out there that have been made over the last like 10 years. A lot of it comes from the Venom movie coming out, and then people want to make that video, or a big Venom comic event, which there have been quite a few of. His introduction in the Spider-Man 2 game, that probably got some Venom videos made. The problem is, unlike with a lot of other characters, after a couple of years, they become kind of incomplete. Compare this to a character like Thor, let's say. If we made a video about the history of Thor, the beginning of Thor's life would be pretty similar throughout, you know, the history. There would be certain things that maybe we'll find out he did that we hadn't heard about, but the base story of Thor, more or less the same. Whereas, if we do this for the Venom symbiote, that video needs to be remade every maybe 5 years because they keep changing what the symbiote is, where it comes from, how it works, why it works the way it does, who had the symbiote first, because I do think the symbiote is the best example in the history of comics of a retcon, which means retroactive continuity, which means instead of changing something so it is a different way in the future, right? So taking a character and giving them a new costume, what some writers do is change something in the current day, but also that has changed the past. A good example of this is a character called the Sentry. He had never shown up in Marvel Comics, and then he has his appearance, and then he starts going, wait, was I here for everything? And then we got some retcons. It turns out he was here for everything, but we all forgot about him. A lot of the times when a character gets retconned, the solution to that is just we forgot that that happened because of a memory spell or something. And the Venom symbiote is no different. Memory spells and different memory erasures will be a big factor in establishing new continuities for the symbiote. Then there's plenty of videos about Eddie Brock, and I will be making one about Flash Thompson. Also, anything you get from the movies of Venom, just throw that right into the trash. Like, there's characters like, I don't know, let's say Kate Bishop, where you see them show up in a movie or TV show, and I can say, all right, so if you watch the TV show, you get kind of the big picture stuff, but there's a lot of details that are not the same in the movie and the show. The movie of Eddie Brock, I cannot understand. A lot of the changes they made are so extreme. Some of it has to do with Spider-Man not being a player in this universe, but also just it's the biggest, I would say, gap in terms of what I expect versus what I'm seeing on screen. And yet, I think the Venom symbiote works really well, but that characterization of Eddie Brock is wild, and it is wild to me. That is the one most people know, just because those movies are pretty popular. But in this video, I want to focus on the three first hosts of the Venom symbiote, before it got to Spider-Man, and Spider-Man realized it might make him angry, so he rips it off in the church, and it goes to Eddie, and Eddie becomes Venom. Before all that happens, there were at least three characters that were a part of Venom, and I want to talk about them. And I will give my written recommendations like I always do. Now, I'll put a little asterisk. These are not the greatest Venom story ever told or essential Venom, but this is a good way to organize what I'll say is like the secret history of the Venom symbiote, even though, you know, some of this I'm sure you know. And I want to say, if I'm recording this in 2024, much of this could be changed in the near future, because one thing about the Venom symbiote, much like Wolverine, it has memory loss, so it doesn't fully know all of the things it did. Every so often, a character will show up and go, hey, it's me. And the Venom symbiote will go, who are you? And they'll go, what are you talking about? I'm me. And then the Venom symbiote's like, oh, right, I forgot about you from before. And then this is a part of his history. It's one of these guys. We'll get to them soon. But the first one, and this is the first essential issue for this character, is Venom from 2018, issue number 4. This is an incredibly consequential issue. It's written by Donny Cates with art by Ryan Stegman, J.P. Mayer, Frank Martin, not the transporter, the colorist, and VC's Clayton Cowles. Okay, and one thing I do get from a lot of people on these videos is they'll say, I like learning about these new characters, but I wish you would do one on some of the older characters that people don't know, like Infinite or Zabu or something like that. Okay, here's a quick one. Let's talk about Null. Null is a character who is very important in Marvel Snap, and in Marvel Comics had a humongous presence because it both was retroactively a big part of the history of some of these characters, and then also it got involved in a big fight and had a big King in Black event that took over a lot of comics, so it was hard to miss Null and to miss his impact on Venom. Like certain iconography, this swirly face, some of the wings, like those are things that people mostly associate with Null, and I believe showed up around the time of Null. But okay, so Null is a god of space, and specifically a god of darkness and the void. So like you look at space, it is mostly black, and that is what Null would call his realm. And he existed before anything else in this universe. I believe, and this is kind of taking us back to that Celestial video I made somewhat recently. This is, in Marvel Comics, the one that all the comics are based on, the 8th version of the universe that has existed. In the 7th version, I believe, that was the one that Null was from. So the Celestials show up and like, we want to be involved in this. We're really excited about making stuff in this universe and creating and filling up all this empty space. And Null says, oh, no. This is my empty space. I like the empty space, so you can leave. They disagree. This starts a big fight. Null creates a sword from his own shadow, because Null is a being of darkness and stuff, and uses that to cut the head off of a Celestial. Now, these are the Celestials, like that's a big deal. This head, I believe, will eventually become Nowhere, the beheaded Celestial floating in space. So I'm not positive about that because I do feel like other Celestials have been killed in this story, but I think this is true. And this sword that he's created is all black, the Necro Sword, Null's somewhat ultimate weapon that will eventually be wielded by Gore the God Butcher, because this is a sword that you can use to kill a god like a Celestial or, you know, the other gods that Gore wants to kill. But so after he cuts off the head of the Celestial, the rest of the Celestials send Null to the Void. Oh no, the Void is a place that's dark and nobody likes it there. Except Null, who's like sick, it's dark. This is like where I'm superpowered and great. He begins corrupting everything. He uses the head of the Celestial as a forge to create weapons, and he corrupts these things and turns them into his symbiote. So this is where the army of the symbiote starts to get spawned. And originally, they were all extensions of Null. He would send the symbiotes to a planet and they would see things and he would see that, like they were a hive mind. However, their connection to the hive mind was severed by Thor, kind of accidentally, but this caused the symbiotes to find new hosts and to create new purpose and rebel and eventually imprison Null in a gigantic ball, a cage. The word Clintar in symbiote language, which is known as the homeworld of the symbiotes and also the race of the symbiotes, so they are the Clintar sometimes. But the word Clintar itself means cage, because the planet Clintar is just a big cage holding back Null. So one of the symbiotes that is part of Null's army, but I don't even want to say rebels against Null, but just doesn't want to join up, is Venom, the symbiote that will eventually be known as Venom. And I believe the story Venom tells at certain points is that he is the 990 something like symbiote created. So he's not like the original symbiote, although I think at some stories he was, but it seems like he's just like a guy. The way that Venom describes himself in the Venom movie is actually pretty good, where he's like, on my planet, I'm a loser, just like you. That is really what his deal was. Now he ended up on Gore's planet, a planet that I still don't think we have a name for, but it's wherever Gore was from, which we will get to eventually. He's also going to be a Marvel Snap. So I would say Null is like the first host of the Venom symbiote because it comes from him. He didn't put it on like clothes, but is part of Null. So he's really not the first host for the symbiote. He's host 0. So key issue 2 is Venom first host number 2. It's written by Mike Costa with art by Mark Bagley, Ron Lim, Andrew Hennessy, Scott Hanna, Dano Sanchez Almara, and VC's Clayton Cowles. So this tells the story of a character known as Tel-Kar. He is a Kree. We meet him in the first issue, but issue 2 is where we get his backstory. So the Kree are an alien race with lots of technology, but they cannot shapeshift. The Skrulls are an alien race who have some technology, but can also shapeshift, and they're constantly at war. The Kree eventually discovered the symbiote. They found their first Clintar and realized they could use it to create a suit of armor that would give them the ability to shapeshift. So it would take away the Skrulls' ultimate weapon. If they could figure out how to use this Clintar Venom symbiote being as a weapon, they could win the war. The first Kree they choose to do this is the character named Tel-Kar. He's a Kree soldier, and he goes on a mission, embeds himself within the Kree. He leads a rescue mission that goes bad, and as he stays behind to sacrifice himself, he takes the symbiote, which is a big circle, and gives it to his people. He's like, study this. This is very important. Like, bring this back to command to be like, hey, this was awesome, but we did lose Tel-Kar. Tel-Kar is not killed, he's imprisoned, and he does find his way back to the symbiote. But the symbiote armor is accidentally lost by the Kree, and it finds its way to its next host. I think Tel-Kar is interesting because Tel-Kar is a soldier. He has a purpose, and we learned that the Venom symbiote did not want to be part of Null's invasion, Null's army, but it doesn't seem to actively fight against being part of the Kree army. That's because the Kree have all this wonderful technology, and they use it to sort of tame the Venom symbiote. So they make it docile. They make it so that it automatically does whatever its wearer wants it to. So it takes away all of the free will, everything that makes the symbiote fun. It also erases the symbiote's memories, so when it eventually finds its new host, it does not remember Tel-Kar. And look at this, we have another retcon, is the history of the first host. But okay, where does it go next? Who's the second host? Well, the Beyonder, the being in charge of Secret Wars, the big Marvel Comics event where they wanted to sell toys, so they put together an event with the word secret and war, apparently, because those two words tested really well. When you think about it, like the idea of Secret War, that kind of is what Secret Wars is, but it's not like the best, like Infinity Wars for the Infinity Gauntlet. This is not for the secret anything. It is a secret in that nobody saw it happen, but like you could easily call this like the Multiverse War or the Battle World War or something, but apparently it's because those words tested well. It'd be like if they made it now, it would be called the Brat War or something, because it's like, that's just trending. Please God, don't do that, Marvel. Do not make Brat War. But so there's this big event where all the heroes came together, all the heroes that were big in the 80s. And not every one of them, not every member of the Fantastic Four showed up, not every X-Men showed up. Most of the Avengers did show up, although Tony Stark wasn't there at this point. It was War Machine in the Tony Stark, like traditional Iron Man armor. But they all formed teams, fought against each other, and then Doom stole the power of the Beyonder. They fought against Doom, And then Secret Wars ended with the Beyonder taking back that power from Doom, and everybody ends up going home to their main universe. When he does this, the battle world that everybody fights on is created from like a patchwork of different planets, including like the US. So the part of Denver that Julia Carpenter is already in shows up on Battle World. One of the pieces of Battle World is also where Venom landed. So he was just kind of brought into this story. If you want to learn about the behind the scenes of how the black suit came to being, like I said, plenty of good videos. Scott Niswinder has one. The short version of the story is a fan designed a really cool costume. They put it into the comics. Everybody hated it. So then took it out of the comics. And that's the whole arc of it existed. And then Spider-Man was like, wait, it's evil. I have to get rid of it. But then people liked it, so they brought it back, and that's how Venom shows up. That's not all of it, but that's big picture. But it's first introduced in a comic where Spider-Man wears it in like the present day Marvel universe. But then we find out the origin. On Battle World, there was a machine that made Spider-Man a new costume, and it was the black suit. And in this black suit happens to be the Venom symbiote. But, and this is a very strange caveat that definitely doesn't count for the actual continuity, but I'm including it anyway because I think it's fun. The actual first person to wear that symbiote was Deadpool. And this came up one more time, but the big series that this comes from is Deadpool's Secret Wars. Now, during the 2015 Secret War, the second one by Jonathan Hickman that everybody loves, Marvel made other series set in different universes. They were very fun. This is where like A-Force comes from. There's a Ghost Rider racing book. That Cowboy Times book is 1862 or something. That's there. One of the other books was this. It is a story that takes place during the original Secret Wars. And the explanation we will get is Deadpool at that time was the superhero Deadpool in like the 1980s. And he was brought to do Secret Wars. So he was actually there the whole time with all the other heroes that were doing this. But because a character was so upset by him, specifically so upset by his face, they wished him out of everyone's memory. So everybody forgot that Deadpool was there. But Deadpool did a bunch of things. He romanced that magic healing woman named like Jazan's or whatever her name is, who had a thing with Human Torch and Colossus. He got healed and he had a cool mustache. He saved all of the heroes. And when he was around the costume machine, he printed a new Deadpool costume, and it ended up being the symbiote costume. Now, this is only a 4-issue series. It's very easy to read, but I will say my third key issue here. And again, these are not the most important issues for the symbiote. These are just interesting ones that if you're already familiar with the Black Suit Spider-Man story from the cartoons or the comics or the movies, this is something that you may not have heard. But this is Deadpool Secret Wars Volume 1, Issue 3. It's written by Colin Bunn with art by Matteo Lolli, Ruth Redmond, and Joe Sabino. And we find out that Deadpool actually wore the Venom symbiote first. Put it on, he was like, this looks cool, and it does look cool. I like this look on him. He'll wear it again in Deadpool Back in Black. But Deadpool realizes, like, this thing is messing with my mind. Like, I don't like it, so I'm going to take it off. So he just gets rid of it, and then Spider-Man goes and uses the machine next. So right after that, Spider-Man gets the black suit. So it's really, like, I think it's stupid, and this doesn't count. And this isn't important, but if you ever see this costume, that's why it exists. And I do think that, like, the idea that the symbiote has had so much more history than we can even imagine is something that I don't think will ever end. Like, I think in comics, in the next, 10, 20 years, there will be even more retcons, even more ancient beings or old stories will turn out to have actually had the Venom symbiote involved somehow. And this is one of them where it's just like, yeah, he was there too, by the way, for a second. And Deadpool knew about him and was like, that's weird, and then left. Powers and abilities. So the power of the symbiote, it has some of its own powers. It creates tendrils. It can restore your life, like it can heal you. It also will enhance certain emotions. Sometimes it's negative emotions, but sometimes it's just extreme emotions. A lot of that seems to have to do with whether the symbiote is actively working for Null or not. Like we said, the Venom symbiote has its own personality that is different from that of just your standard symbiote, and as we will learn next month, which I'm not looking forward to, all of the symbiotes have their own different weird personalities because they've made so many different offshoots of Venom. They have two very easy to understand weaknesses, sound and fire. Originally, I believe the explanation for this was that they just exist in like the vacuum of space, and there's not a lot of sound and there's not a lot of fire. So if they go somewhere where there is sound and fire, it like really messes with them. And that's obviously Spider-Man 3, right? The church bell scene, Spider-Man uses to overpower the symbiote, and then the bomb, the fire pumpkin bomb, is used to kill the symbiote. So it's represented pretty well in media. And I mean, not in all Spider-Man media, because in Venom 2, Venom just goes to a rave, a loud rave, and is like, cool, I'm good with this. I guess the writers just forgot. Or they just wanted to do it, which is fine, you know, it doesn't all have to matter. But like, I do like that the Venom symbiotes just do have some pretty like explicit, understandable weaknesses. And I will say, I don't remember where I heard this, but I think after the Null retcon, they changed the symbiote weakness to, because Null had like a physical forge that he used to build all these weapons, the symbiotes are allergic to fire and sound because it reminds them of the forge itself. So it reminds them of being, you know, hit by the hammer and turned into this weapon. I don't think it really matters exactly why. Both of those origins are cool, but that is a thing that has changed over time. As far as personality is concerned, the symbiote is very loyal. That's something that I think is interesting, and it has people it favors. It does not like working with people who are just straight up jerks. It doesn't really get along with them. People like, I think that, you know, Venom and Eddie Brock is a classic pairing, and those two characters, especially at that time, had a lot to do together. Like their journeys aligned very conveniently. The Flash Thompson storyline, which we'll get to next month, paints a picture of a slightly different symbiote with more going on. And especially when you keep introducing symbiote villains, because originally Venom's the crazy symbiote, but then Carnage shows up and it's like, no, Carnage is the crazy one. Venom's a little bit more normal. It's like, well, maybe he's the evil, dark symbiote. It's like, nope, there's Null. Null's his dad. Null's the dark, evil symbiote god guy. Venom's a little bit more chill than him. In fact, he's so chill, he didn't even want to be part of his gang. So I do think Venom is just like kind of what the everyman symbiote would be. And part of that must come from the fact that he's just bonded with so many different characters. You know, you take a little bit of some of them. So, like, you know, Captain Marvel, I'm sure like Thor, Captain America, every character has been symbiotified. In Marvel Snap, Symbiote Spider-Man is a 4-cost, 6-power. With the card text Activate, merge your lowest cost card here with this. Copy its text like it was just revealed. So this is the first time we're seeing an Activate card. It seems like it's something that they're going to work into more cards in the game. Basically, the difference between Activate and On Reveal is an On Reveal card has text that is put into motion when the card is revealed, when it is played. But the Activate cards, I'm not exactly sure how you select it, but you get to choose. Like, you could play it on turn 4, but not activate it until turn 5 or 6 or something like that. It's unclear if you can play it on turn 4 and activate it on turn 4. And that's just because I record these a little bit in advance. We haven't seen exactly how this works. Thought process here, super simple. You have a card that used a power and then gets a symbiote, gets a little boost, and is able to use that power again, and, you know, gets a little bit stronger because of the existence of the symbiote. I think this is a cool power. I like this. It's like a way better Hulk Buster. It's cool because it can work together with like so many cards, much like Venom has worked together with so many characters. This is especially good for on-reveal cards. So Spider-Man, Venom, and Carnage are the big three. They are on-reveal cards. And Spider-Man, if you're trying to move cards around, getting to move another card, especially with an Activate power, super useful. Let's say with Carnage, right? A lot of times the way you play Carnage is you feed it 1-cost cards and 2-cost cards to power it up, because it doesn't matter what it absorbs. And one of the problems is if you do the symbiote there, it will merge not with the 2-cost cards, but with the 1-cost card. So it would make a symbiote squirrel or whatever. So that isn't great. But I do think the idea of like giving new life to characters, replaying a card, like there's cards that kind of already do this. Obviously, Absorbing Man is the main one if you want to do over a on-reveal effect. And if you want to play Silver Surfer and then play a Silver Surfer effect again, it's the easiest way to do it. Also, you don't have to be using cards in the same lane, which is handy. One thing I'm not incredibly clear on is how this will work with on-reveals on like a long lane. I guess when you activate it, it'll happen twice. I'm not sure. I do think it's fun that one of the cards that does not work particularly well with is Null. Like, I think it worked pretty well in a Destroy deck, or at least you can probably work this into a Destroy deck, but it's not going to be like incredible with Null, because Null's not an on-reveal card, and it's a turn 6, so you're not going to play it, you know, until the end of the game. One card that is going to be good with that we haven't gotten to yet, or at least that it is going to synergize interestingly with, is Gore. If the current data mine text of how Gore is going to work in like 2 seasons is true, it is powered by on-reveal cards. So like if you have a deck with a lot of on-reveal cards, throwing a symbiote is a no-brainer. Like, so like, yeah, throw in an Ironheart and then do another Ironheart with the symbiote. And the Gore connection is cool because of the connection to All Black, the Necro Sword. I do think this will be better for like on-reveal decks. I don't think it's going to be awesome for move. It could probably work with move, but I wouldn't say that's going to be like the main archetype that it works with. I mean, we'll see, but I wouldn't be shocked if like Spider-Man and Symbiote Spider-Man don't get played together incredibly often. I do think cards like Ben Reilly, who we'll get to later, who was one of the hosts of the Venom symbiote, that's going to work super well because you can clone again. I always talk about the variants here. I will say these 3 variants are great. And by 3 variants, we got the base art by Ryan Kincaid and Eduardo Mello. I like it. It's good. It's not, you know, breaking a ton of new ground, but I think it's a good, like a fun dynamic pose here. Then you have the season pass variant, which I love, by In-Hyuk Lee. I think the In-Hyuk Lee variants are always very cool, but then there is a Bronze Age variant by John Betty and Mark Zeck, and this is the cover of Secret Wars 8 with the reveal of the Symbiote Spider-Man. It's not the first time technically he wore the suit in the comics, but it's an image everybody remembers. I think that is very cool. I love the variants that are based on comic covers. I only have the Thanos one, but it's gorgeous. So yeah, we have a lot of cards we're going to be talking about this season, a lot of Spider-Man cards. They probably won't have as complicated history as this until we get to Ben Reilly. So if you enjoyed this video, like it, share it on Reddit, Discord, all that stuff. Like, subscribe, follow, whatever you can do on this platform to this channel. I've got lots more videos. I hope you enjoy them. Stay safe, and I'll see you next time.